to the Developer Show. We are headed to KubeCon North America in just 2 weeks, and we're hosting an AI agents workshop. So we thought, who better to have on the show than the co-founder of KubeCon himself, Kelsey Hightower. I have been so excited for this live stream. We're also joined by one of my colleagues at GitLab, Emilio Salvador, who leads our developer relations and strategy team. I can't play favorites with the show, but I do think that this is going to be my favorite show. Today, we're going to sit down with Kelsey and Emilio for a conversation about AI, the future of software development, and what actually matters while everyone is chasing the next AI trend. After that, we'll dive into the GitLab from our audience. So drop your questions in the chat and we'll try to answer them live. We won't be doing a live coding for this episode, but we'll pick up the Contributors Garden project next month. Okay, let's bring out the people that you've all been waiting for, our amazing guests. Hello. First off, thank you so much to both of you for making the time. I'm a huge fan of all of the work that you've done and the impact that you both have in the spaces that you're in. So welcome to the Developer Show.
Yo, that intro got me excited. So whatever's going to happen, you definitely raised the bar for today. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you.
Hey, thank you, Fatima. Thank you, Kelsey, for spending time with us. It's always a pleasure connecting with you.
I am so excited to have both of you. And I did a little bit of research. Emilio, I know well. Kelsey, I know of. I actually met you 4 years ago on a book signing line at KubeCon. And so I was like, what a full circle moment to be like, welcome to my show. One of the things that I've noticed about both of you is that when you think about AI and talk about the impact of AI on society and people and engineers, it's always through this deeply personal lens. So, Kelsey, you had a talk on AI hype, human impact, and what still matters in tech, and where your daughter was in the audience and asked, like, what's my future in an AI-driven world? And Emilio has spoken to me about like watching his kids who are going through college and navigating education and thinking about things like when AI can do so much of people's work, like what is it that's still really valuable? So I'd love to hear from both of you sort of your higher level thoughts on what's the future in this world of like everything is driven by AI, and like how do you shape your perspective when you're sort of thinking about those things and the impact of those things? And we can start with Kelsey and then Emilio.
Yeah, look, as someone who's a deep technologist, I've been around for a long time. The transition from system administration to DevOps to platform engineering, the emergence of cloud, all of these things. And in many cases, I've been right there at the heart of it, building the tools, getting people to understand that there's a change coming. But even during that time period, I was always showing people how they fit into that change, like what changes for them, And I think in this world, AI seems super exciting, but there's one part of the narrative that I think is we have to be very careful about. I remember the thing we used to say as a system administrator, I will replace you with a shell script. Meaning for people doing the type of work that we could easily turn into a shell script, we would always see a world where they would go do something else. And now that we're talking about these tools getting even more powerful than what a shell script could ever do, then what happens to all the people for the last 30 years who defined their almost entire existence based on their job titles? And to say that their job may go away because this AI thing, unbounded potential, that makes me feel a little bit more like, hey, AI is amazing, but so is real intelligence. And how do we kind of protect the dignity of people that do this kind of work? So I'll stop there for now, but I think it's so important to think about technology in the big picture point of view, and versus treating it just like another tool. This isn't Kubernetes. This is a much bigger potential than that. And we have to think about this problem a little bit more holistically.
Yeah, I could not agree more with Kelsey. And even I'm looking at that as a parent with 2 kids. And I see the huge potential and the impact that this is having across everything, right? I mean, I saw my kid the other day asking ChatGPT what outfit he should have for the day. And I was like, boom. So it's not just, Kelsey, to your point, it's not just about technology, it's about this thing is gonna reshape many, many things, even things that we haven't even thought about. I would have never thought about using ChatGPT to ask about my outfit, right? So I guess that it's one of those things that the change element that this is bringing, not only from a technology standpoint, but also in the way that people either learn and use not just technology, the way they think about math, science, history. I had a debate with my kid about one of the topics he's studying. And he was asking me is that, hey, why I have every answer at my fingertips. So my question, or the question I'm asking myself as a parent, is how can I develop that critical thinking, that problem solving, all the good qualities that you need to have in order to succeed in a world where you're going to be facing like different challenges, technology being one of them. And how can we use AI to challenge ourselves, challenge our kid, and make all of us better?
And these are sort of the topics that I think we'll cover today as a panel. And one of the things that you both mentioned there is sort of the shift that has happened in the market, and how people can organize themselves and how they should prepare themselves now that that shift has happened. So maybe we'll start there. We'll start talking about what it is, the challenge is, and then we'll shift into how people can future proof themselves in their careers in order to answer to that shift, and be able to use these tools, but in a way that protects their dignity and their skill sets. Let's talk about the market for a bit, and sort of, Emilia, you've touched on this with me in the past, and at some of our events where there was this hype, people lost their jobs, and there's a nuance to that where it's, we thought that, I don't want to say we, because I don't think any of us thought this, but I think there was a situation in which the world thought that AI was going to change everything and take over everything, and that's not the case, and we have seen statistics that's not the case, and I wanted to open a space to have that conversation.
Yeah, it's the amazing thing about the world that we're living in is that there's always a new study or there's always a new tool, right? So even the things that you believe to be true in one moment, there's something happening a week from today that is going to change probably even your opinion. I feel that we are going through kind of the next phase. I agree with you that at the beginning, AI would basically do everything for ourselves. At some point in time, I even read articles where, hey, developers are no longer needed,
Right.
which is honestly probably not the smartest thing to say in this environment. I feel like with everything else, and the other thing that we got to admit is that one thing is how technology moves. Technology moves super fast. Our ability to adopt technology takes a little bit longer. I was with customers the other day where we're still using mainframes, COBOL, and they're not even thinking about AI. They're just thinking about, cloud technologies and Kubernetes. So those are the things that we gotta keep in mind. My first advice to everyone is, hey, get a real sense of what's going on, right? Is that don't let yourself, or don't believe in everything you read. Eventually, at the very end of the day, is that get familiar with the technologies that you want to use, the tools that you want to use, and understand them. Yeah. Based on that, once you have a really good knowledge, you'll be able to apply them in the right way. But if we just follow the marketing headlines, then we're doomed, right? Is that you don't even need me in this show. There will be an AI, an AI avatar.
I am not going to replace myself with an AI avatar. Kelsey, you've talked about this a little bit too, the same sort of skepticism, which is like, don't necessarily lead with AI. And I'm curious, like, what it is that in your experience is making you skeptic about that, so that you can share some of the wisdom behind your sort of suggestions there or recommendations.
For the sake of this session, sake of this video,
yes,
I'm going to table the situation where AI does everything. That is a possible outcome. Let's just say it happens. Then it doesn't matter. At that point, humans will just have to try to figure out how to be nice to each other while not trying to define ourselves based on wealth and what our job titles are. So that's a whole thing I'm just going to table for a moment.
Agreed.
Outside of that, traditionally, humans have created societies with each other, and we learn how to do things. And the thing that makes us very unique as a species is our ability to make tools, hammers, nails, contain and manage fire. And so for a long time, we've leveraged these tools to do the things we want to do. So the purpose comes first. I want to cross these two destinations. So we build a bridge. Mm-hmm. So we don't do bridge-driven development. We actually have things that we want to do. So then we create tools to help us do them. So purpose.
We didn't know we needed the bridge until we had to cross.
Exactly. So purpose tends to come first. And so when we think about something that's going to be very familiar to this audience, like CI/CD, when you really zoom out, the company creates a set of decisions. We want to write code in this language. We want to compile it, build it, scan it for security vulnerabilities, maybe sanitize it, see if it passes our style guide, and deploy it to our customers, right? That is a set of decisions you tend to make and a purpose that drives you. And so then we come up with this idea of CI/CD, and we build pipelines that reflect our decisions. So the real intelligence comes first, and then the tooling supports the decisions we make as a collective, right? That all makes sense. When you get to this new era and someone says, just give it a hint at what you want to do, even if you don't understand what you want to do. So you could say something like, I would like a ride sharing app. That's it. Just want a ride sharing app. And this thing goes and creates one for you. And you say, deploy it somewhere and make me a lot of money. Right? That is an amazing way. If we could do everything that way, of course, who wouldn't want a software equivalent of the holodeck? That would be amazing. But that's not typically how it works. The way it typically works is that someone is using my ride sharing app and they feel unsafe. And they would like a way to share their ride with a loved one. And then we iterate based on these human experiences. And so maybe we're going to get a brand new programming language out of all of this where we don't write syntax anymore. We don't write front end anymore. We just describe the scenario to people and then the software just generates itself. That could be a possible outcome. So that's just going to be my stance on this. Real intelligence, I love it. I adore it. I'm going to hype it up just as much as artificial intelligence gets hyped up. But I just want to remind people, these are tools. The purpose comes first. And then how we articulate that purpose, a prompt, a spec file, you name it, should just be kind of the byproduct of how we work in the future if this thing pans out.
Yeah, I like the suggestion of like, what's the problem that you're solving? Who's the user that you're solving for? And reminding ourselves of that, because I think traditionally that's how software works. And maybe being able to build things so quickly with AI is making people forget like why they were building the thing.
But Tim, can I put a little bit more nuance on it? Like,
absolutely.
It's very important that we don't like skim the surface too much. 20 years ago, you could have had fully automated deployments. People could write code, check it in, and you could have fully automated it to 1 million servers around the world. 20 years ago, you had all the technology necessary to do that. And if you did it 20 years ago, you would be at the same prowess of like the big hyperscaler cloud providers. If you did this 20 years ago, you had everything you need to go. 10 years ago, you had the ability to do this and be platform independent across any set of languages 10 years ago. So today, the fact that we have some of these new tools doesn't change the fact that you got to make decisions and follow through and execute. And that's what the industry has been struggling with for a very long time, which I think explains a little bit of this hype cycle. Right now, some of the narrative, not all of the narrative, but some of the narrative is that you won't have to have discipline anymore. You won't have to do the hard work anymore. You just rub a little AI on it.
You just pass it off to this thing.
And then it's just going to do its thing by itself. And that's where I think is feeling a lot of this excitement right now, because that means all the things I ignored for the last 30 years, I never have to learn now. And I think that's a mistake.
Yeah. And I think, Camila, you agree with this. You've seen that pilots that don't work.
Absolutely. And I feel that we keep missing to your, I mean, building on your idea, Kelsey. Basically, that's it. People tend to forget that that is just the beginning of the problem. You got to take that idea, break it down into smaller pieces. And then is that behind that big problem, there's a gazillion small problems that need to be solved. Not only just the idea of sharing that right with someone else. And I feel that is, whenever we are able to come up with new technologies to help us solve those problems faster, that's always great. But the reality is that you still need that intelligence, that person who is able to understand the big problem and break it down into smaller problems that can be solved one at a time. And not only that, is that once you're solving those problems, you need to bundle them back up together to solve that bigger problem. And I feel that we're missing in many of the things that we see online today, is that we're just going from that idea, I want to write share app, and then all of a sudden you have that app. It's like, no, there's a gazillion tiny details and many things that happen in between that involve many different kinds of people, from developers, ops, security. And those are the things that we tend to forget. We tend to paint this amazing picture that everything is magic and happens and it works. The reality is that it doesn't.
Right. Yeah. I want to remind our audience, because they're engaging with us quite a bit in the chat, that you can ask questions. And if you do ask a question, we'll pull it up live and sort of switch away from what we're chatting about to answer your question. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat if you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn. So feel free to do that. We're looking forward to seeing your questions. I sense that the conversation is moving away from the market, and we're wanting to talk about, I think, the issue that's core to both of you, really, and your visions for this. And that's like, what is it that humans need to work on? And Kelsey, you mentioned this earlier with the shell script. Like, the idea of the shell script was so that you can automate a thing, so you can go on to learn another thing that you might be interested in. And so what is it that you would advise developers to learn on or grow in or focus on, beyond the AI tool itself? And we can come back and talk about AI tools and what's helpful there, but like, what's helpful from a human perspective to grow in?
You're a developer. You're sitting at your computer and you're like, what should I
Yeah.
build?
Yeah.
You're sitting there.
Is it important to be like, what should I build, or
No,
what
I mean,
should
just think
I?
through it. Like, you're literally in your chair, looking at your screen, and the cursor's just blinking. What should I
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
And again, that's what happens when you don't have any purpose.
Right.
And so I think as a developer, why are you doing this? Now, you could say, I need a job and I've been assigned a bunch of Jira tickets.
Yeah.
I'm just working from the backlog. That's all I'm doing. It's just waiting for someone to tell me exactly what to do. If that's you, then of course you might have a problem if prompt engineering gets better, because I can take you out of the equation and just hook up the ticketing system
to
the thing that's generating code.
Yeah.
If that's all you're going to bring to the table. So think about that. That's if you do nothing. If you're a developer and you're listening to this, if you do nothing other than that, of course you're competing with all the LLMs and the prompt-driven tools. So then what would you do above and beyond that to offer more value? What can you do that only a human can do? And that's where I think the whole part of being a developer gets very interesting.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what to develop, right? Sometimes you're just using something and you're like, wow, this could be improved. And it's that very idea, whether it comes from your customer, it comes from your PM, or it comes from your direct experience by getting hands-on with the product. It's that idea that then sparks things. And before we write any line of code, we're trying to flesh out the idea. What is the most efficient way of doing this? Let's do it from a cost perspective. Let's do it in a way that's safe, that's inclusive of all of our users. And once you get all of those decisions in play, the next thing you do, wait for it, you may not have to write any code at all. There may be a library that already does this.
Yeah.
And you just import the library and you use it as is, right? That's like what a lot of great developers do. And only when there is no library, no framework, no one's ever done it before.
Is that possible?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that work this way. We just don't talk about them because it's kind of boring. If you want to process a credit card, you import one library, pick a platform, and you're kind of done. So we don't really talk a lot about that anymore. And so as we, as a collective, solve more of these problems and create the libraries and frameworks, then a lot of this knowledge and know-how becomes reusable. So now we get to the AI component. It's when we don't have those things that this thing becomes an assistance to help us discover what's possible based on what has been done in the past. And maybe if you have the right model yourself, you can use this companion in its current form to collaborate on new ideas and push it to new domains that you may not have yourself. So that's the way I kind of think about this thing as a developer. If you just write code, that's all you want to do, then yeah, you might not have a bright future. But if you go beyond just the ability to write code and do some of the other things, I think life gets really great for you because there's so many things that we have yet to build that may need to be built.
I'm adding something to that. Fully agree with you, Kelsey, on eventually the what. That is something that developers, bring, and it's something unique that many of the developers that I work with bring to the table. That ability also to look the problem behind the problem, because eventually is that, to me, there's something that I wish I could teach, everyone, including my kids, is that ability to solve problems. And then you use tools to solve those problems. Sometimes those tools will be, you'll have to code yourself, or you'll be able to use AI, or there will be something available that you can reuse. But my only fear is that we rely too much on technologies or tools that will make us lazy, right? And it's like, I love to be able to use those tools to challenge ourselves. Because there's one thing I don't see happening anytime soon, is that ability to look at the problems behind the problem. It is not just about creating an app. It's that all the things that people didn't even think about, but you are able to think about because you've been doing this for years. You can think about scalability, redundancy, security, so many things that you can just not define with a simple prompt.
Yeah. But I think in order to be able to do that, you have to when you're sitting at your computer and you're thinking what do I need to build, you have to stop and be like, why am I building this? What are the other components of this? You have to sort of step out of the box that you've put yourself in, that Kelsey was describing earlier, like if you're just there to do the task, and realize that you have power over other parts of the periphery there. We did get a really cool question from Brian, if we can pull that up. I've met a lot of graduates and junior devs that are worried that their use of AI is affecting their learning journey, which Emilio is something that you just mentioned. Some people worry that they have gaps because AI can do it for them. How can juniors use the right amount of AI? I'm nervous to answer that question directly as the right amount, but perhaps we have a recommendation to how you can use AI to support your learning journey.
I mean, if you were to substitute AI for like compilers, right? So you're early in your journey and you're using compilers. So you're writing this high level language, it could be JavaScript, it could be Python, but you don't know assembly. You really don't know what the ARM CPU is doing versus what the Intel CPU is doing. You don't know how memory gets managed and moved around. You're unsure why there's security vulnerabilities when the code compiles. Everything seems to work, but yet still someone finds a way to exploit it. And so in those moments is when we ask ourselves, like, what is the compiler doing for me? And then you have to ask your question. So this is the real question. Do you really need to know? And for a lot of people, for a lot of scenarios, the answer is honestly no, not in the beginning.
Maybe
In the
just
beginning,
enough to get moving.
well, sometimes it's just learning how to write code and letting the compiler do the heavy lifting. For the most part, is going to be okay. There's going to be edge cases where something doesn't work, and there's an army of people that know how to work on the compiler specifically. But I do think that to answer this question, what is AI doing for me? Just that simple question. So let's say you walk up to a prompt and you say, write me a hello world application in Golang. But let's imagine you don't even choose the language because you're unaware of the programming languages. So write me a hello world app, and it chooses the Go programming language. If we were to ask this question, what is it doing for me? Number one, it has chosen the Go programming language. The next thing you could do is say, why did it choose Go? Is the model biased towards its decision? Has its data set included more Go code than other programming languages? And then you start to get into the details of how the model works. And if that intrigues you, the artificial process of making this all happen, then you can kind of play the decision to yourself. Well, how would you choose the programming language? Would you try them all first? Would you look at the job market to see which one is the best one for you in particular to invest in? And then maybe you learn how to write Hello World from scratch. Like literally say, I'm going to turn off my search engine. I'm going to turn off ChatGPT. I'm going to see if I can open a blank sheet and write a Hello World program that just works. And if it doesn't, then you go back to training and then you try it again. And then once you really figure out how to do a hello world, then you can say, all right, I have proven that I know how to do it. I understand the fundamentals around it. I just don't want to do it again. So I'll just use a library or let chat do it for me. I think that is the right arc if you're interested in improving your own model instead of just using someone else's.
Because you have to train yourself a little bit before you can have that external input. I really like that because you get to do the fundamentals and challenge yourself and understand them in a way that doesn't completely rely on this flood of text that you may or may not have absorbed in that process.
And I would even take things a little bit further. I would even start with the idea of, hey, number one, what is a Hello World app, right? So people to understand that concept first. And then that's once you truly understand that there's an idea, it's like it's a basic thing that runs on a computer. Hello needs to be written somewhere. It has to be displayed on the screen. Once you truly basically understand those fundamentals, eventually the way you express how to that hello world is to some extent even not that relevant. So that's kind of one of the things that I would invite, every person studying computer science today is that don't forget about the fundamentals, because if you forget about them, you will never be able to get to the next level. if you just rely on a single tool that is going to do all the work for you, is that you eventually you're going to face a wall, because those tools will not solve everything. And in many cases, your ability, what you bring to the table is the ability to solve things in ways that were not solved before. That's where the human creativity, is so important.
It's interesting that you both mentioned Hello World, because as you were talking, I realized the amount of times I have tried to get an LLM to give me a Hello World. I have gotten like a phase 3 engineering architected project with deployments and I've had to like look at that and be like, no, sorry, I was trying to learn, like back it up 30,000 feet and give me the simplest possible. And even when you explicitly ask for the simplest possible application, you still get something with the CI/CD file and like the CD. And like, as someone who may not have been familiar with the language or the thing that I was building or the thing that I was playing around with, it's so much. And I would have never learned to know what is too much. For example, if it sets up the deployment for you and it pushes it to like a server, what if it was a static application? I didn't need necessarily to host it and pay for hosting. And so even last night I was doing a little hobby project and it, a certain LLM was trying to get me to host it. And I was like, but this is static. Like, do I need? But I knew to ask that question. And so what I'm hearing from you is it's hard to know what's good when you get that flood of information, because you maybe didn't spend the time to figure out what the pieces are that you need versus the pieces that would nice to have and the pieces that are enterprise level. And you can only get that through playing around without the impact of the thing. Yeah. Sorry, I felt very strongly about that Hello World example.
No, I love your answer, because what you just demonstrated there is the ability to determine if this is what you actually want versus what's being given to you. And I think that is the game changer in how you approach these tools.
We do have another great question from Sohanyal. We'll pull it up on the screen. Do we need to limit AI? I feel the answer is, let me finish the question. Do we need to limit AI, or should we teach it everything humans have understood so far in every field?
Now, the dope thing about this, I always remind people, and I think sometimes we forget, it's not out of, sometimes it's just, we don't just take the time to remember. Every human produces data, and it only turns into data. So your heart beats, and you put on a smartwatch, and the smartwatch records the heartbeat.
Yeah.
And at that moment, your heartbeat turns into data, right? And so now if we collect data from all of the people, all the humans in the world, and their heartbeats, and then you aggregate that, and then of course you can use statistical analysis to figure out what is a normal heartbeat in a particular region of the world. This is amazing. We've been doing this type of analysis for a long time. And then if you were to take a lot of analysis, like doctors' opinions, early detection of heart problems, and you were to synthesize that data into a training set, that means humans have already started the process of teaching or serializing our knowledge into these machines. Mm-hmm. So when people say AI, it's almost like they're almost disregarding the fact that we are the ones with the lived experience. We are the ones who produce the data based on our experience in the world.
Collective memory,
collective experience, collective ideas. And we're the ones that then serialize it. The trick part is we are also the ones who accept and reject those ideas.
Yeah.
Based on our individual experiences. The one thing that I think separates this AI vision, it's not should we not teach it everything. It's that how do we allow it to participate in society? We have a definition. It's like a sliding scale of what right and wrong is. And since this thing doesn't have lived experience, doesn't have the same lived experience as you do, so it may not be able to discern the quality of an answer the way you will. So it's okay to save our data. It's okay to record the data. But the way we accept those decisions, that's the part where I would say, I don't know if we should just go all in and blindly ask, in your case of your example you gave earlier, Emilio, like ask the LLM to decide what we want to wear. Wearing something is almost an expression of yourself. So only you will have the best answer.
Yeah, and the question is really good. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, right? I think that it also depends on how you're thinking about AI, the field you're in, and there's so many like different variables. I look at this from a different angle, right? Like any technology that we have developed as humans, eventually can be properly or improperly used, right? And we need to find and strike that balance. So we use this in a way that helps us as humans, as a society, without any harm. And and that, that we can talk about that for hours, right?
So there's a question similar to what you just said from Ali in the chat, and it says, "I currently work in a role that doesn't require me to code, but I want to start learning. What would you recommend is worth focusing on?" We can go Kelsey and then Emilio.
I mean, I just love that. I mean, it's I think you decide. The future is determined by the people who are working on it. And so if like cooking is the same scenario, why learn to cook when there's DoorDash? You could just call an app and someone just brings you the food. And then you would say, well, why would I ever want to learn to cook? And it's like, man, the ability to, I always tell people, living in the world in read-only mode, you can do a lot. You can go to every restaurant and taste everything that they have prepared. You can go to your favorite app and order the dishes that are on display. But when you learn how to code, or in this analogy, when you learn how to cook, you get to explore. You get to create new dishes. You get to remix other dishes. Maybe you don't like a particular ingredient. You can take it out and put one in that you like and give that dish a new name. That is such a powerful component of the human experience. And I think as a technologist, it's the same thing when you learn to code, right? There are new programming languages that are yet to be invented, and they're usually based on style and taste of the person implementing the programming language. And so I think you just saying this question that I want to start to learn to code, that is a personal decision. Even if the industry tries to discourage you from it, I think it's one of the things that just keep that personal boundary alive, where you make decisions about the growth of yourself, independent necessarily of what your job is asking you to do. So I think it's a good step forward. And I don't know if you lose if you learn the skill of the tool creator, because you can then decide what new tools get built in the future.
Assuming they want to learn how to code, and I can't speak for this specific question, but sort of modifying the question a little bit for you, Emilio, like, if I choose to learn to code, regardless of whether the institution I work for requires it, what are some other skills I should also develop as a part of that you have seen are valuable that I could consider developing?
I always go back to this whole idea of being methodological, right? There's a methodology behind everything, and also about problem solving. Going back to the question is that, hey, I work in a role that doesn't require code, but I bet that whatever role you're in, there are problems to be solved. And I find that coding and programming is an amazing way of helping you solve those problems. And that's what I would start with, is that, hey, what are the problems that I'm trying to solve? How can I use technology and coding as a way to solve those problems? Try to analyze the things that you are doing. I bet that every single one of us on our daily jobs, we see amazing opportunities for improvement. There's things that we can make faster or easier for people. And that's what coding can help with. Even you may believe that coding is not going to be helpful to solve those problems. I feel there is that. And there's plenty of opportunities for people to start learning. I would start with the basics. Honestly, I would forget AI for a sec, and I will go back to the basics, computer science 101, the Hello World app, trying to understand the fundamentals. And once you have that solid foundation, then you start thinking about the tools that you can bring to help you accelerate not only your learning process, but also the way you can apply those learnings into your daily jobs.
It's interesting you mentioned learning process. Like, something I'm still grappling with, and I don't know that I have a good answer for this yet, is like, how does learning change now? And so, like, when I was in college and when I was growing up, and I'm still pretty young, but even my experience feels different from the experience of my nieces who are studying computer science. And like, learning has become so much more accessible, but as a result of the way that it's become accessible, it's become tricky too, because I used to go to the library and like take out a book and then learn about a thing. And so I'm not sure how learning is changing, but I know that it's changing, and I haven't been able to put words around it. So I didn't know if either of you had thoughts on that. And then there's another question.
I don't know if learning is changing. Remember, the human species is still kind of composed the way it's composed.
Yeah.
Think about it. Birds learn how to fly without ChatGPT.
That's
or
true.
Books or videos. They learn how to fly.
Right.
My daughter's 18 now, and I watched her do a lot of things before she learned how to read. So we got to make sure we remind ourselves that
Right.
that process is way more elaborate than what we can do with computers. Let's
The
make no mistake.
institutional memory of humans is way more powerful than the computers.
Culture, observing, seeing the world in real time, smell, taste, feelings, emotion, loves, fear. These are all teaching tools. Just because we haven't figured out how to let a computer do it that way doesn't mean it's not a valid form of thing. And this is why I think the reinforcement learning community is also trying to remind people that this generation of AI doesn't invalidate the thing we've discovered over generations, that experience-based learning is an amazing thing that we haven't been able to articulate, because the amount of data to do experience-based learning makes what we're doing now look like it's so far away.
Yeah.
And so I think the way you learn, though, I think maybe the way I would like to think about it is there's more tools, there's more options. There's things like YouTube videos, there's chatbots. There's so many ways that you can use to learn something. But I think it's great to have all of them. Sometimes nothing beats doing the reading on your own and then being around a group of people who help fill in the gaps while sitting next to you, that can read your body language and say, oh, you're unsure of this question.
Yeah.
So let me give you a more detailed answer, and then allow you to do ad hoc questions until we all get there together. That to me is also an element of learning that I think is worth preserving. So the learner has evolved much slower than the tools we can use to learn with.
Agree.
It's building on this, right? I remember being in a discussion with one professor.
Yeah.
Basically, the professor was challenging the students because every single one, they had to deliver a paper, and every paper was basically written using some of the AI tools. And she was challenging the students, saying that idea of, why are you doing this? Why are you using these tools? You don't realize that you're not learning anything. And one of the students responded with, what's the point of learning? And honestly, that answer shocked me and made me think a lot about that question. And hey, learning is what makes us unique, right?
Yeah.
Now you have the possibility of learning more things, or spending more time learning deeper on the things that you really love and have passion about. And that is something that I feel that we can never forget, because the moment that you decide to stop learning and rely on either other people or tools, then who are you? How are you going to improve as a person? How are we going to improve as a society if the learning is basically forgotten, right? There's no point in learning. I feel it's quite the opposite, especially in this new world. Learning is now open to almost everyone. Use that advantage. Now you have the ability to learn things that you were not able to learn years ago because that information was not, available to you.
Yeah.
And then the way you learn will help you go with new ideas and create new things.
And, when we talk about learning is open to everyone, like, I'm very sensitive to this, and I'm really glad that Aaron asked this question in the chat. How do you think AI for software development will empower or hinder Black folks and other minorities getting into tech? And so as we think about futures and future-proofing careers, I'm really glad, Aaron, thank you for asking this question. If we feel comfortable talking about this would be great. I think a lot of your audience, Kelsey in particular, feels strongly about this.
So look, I'm gonna start with that last question, and then I'm gonna bridge into this one, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I think I know where that is coming from. In school, people force you to learn. You have to learn these random subjects that we picked you. They just don't know why. It's like, hey, sit down. 2 + 2 = 4.
You have to trust the process. Yeah.
You have to read this particular novel. You have to learn this version of history. You have to learn all of these things. And then you're like, but why? It's like, to graduate, or you're going to get in trouble. And it's like, all right, I'm gonna do
get
this.
A job.
Yeah, I'm turning 18, and you kind of force me to learn a bunch of arbitrary things with this arbitrary grading scale that a lot of people have resentment for.
Yeah.
And so learning is just a natural thing, right? So like, if you touch the stove and your hand gets burned and you hesitate to touch the stove again, you've learned, whether you wanted to or not, your nervous system will remember that, whether you want to remember that or not. Yeah. And so I think, like, you don't remember to beat your heart, do you? Like, you don't sit around like, heartbeat.
No.
that thing happens automatically. So some learning is out of your control, actually. So learning is a survival tool.
Mm.
It's the artificial learning that I think the whole group of people are now struggling with. What is required to get a PhD? What's required to be a software developer? There are some companies that are mandating the use of particular tools.
Yeah.
And then when a developer says, but why? It's like, I don't know. I read it somewhere. That's what we should be doing. And we're doing it. So then the same resentment you get from school comes into play. So I think I actually
It's the
understand the
coercion
sentiment.
of using the tool.
I get the sentiment. So I'm going to bridge into this question, because when we think about, whether you're a Black person or a woman in tech, what I think this question gets at is the politics and the power structure in work.
Yeah.
Right? Some people call people their boss. I prefer manager because of the relationship I see with the person. You're not the boss of me. You can't make me do anything. I can totally quit. I'm a free person.
Right.
When you use the word boss, you're kind of saying, no, whatever you tell me goes. And it's just that vocabulary. So when we think about AI, when you look at AI, you say, well, who controls it? This is where the power structure comes into play. If a company wants to optimize by reducing expenses, and I'm repeatedly told that the most expensive component for most businesses are the people, I'm looking at AI as thinking, oh, the power structure is going to reduce the number of us. We go first. And so I can understand this question saying, wow, how does it do it? But let me put some positive light on this. Especially because of open source, the ability to see these things coming and decide that we're going to learn how they actually work. We're going to learn how to make a competing version. We're going to learn how to leverage these things for our unique situations, for our communities, our countries. Think about it. Just being able to translate every piece of knowledge into your native tongue can go a long way of empowering your own community. So I would say if you're asking this question to yourself, there's one part where we just go into the fear mode and we all just back away. But I think there's also a mode that you go in to say, okay, let's learn what this is and let's build versions of it that align with our values, because there doesn't have to be just one of anything.
Right.
So I think that's another thing, that just having that ability to create things, read things, understand things knowledge is power. And that's what I'm trying to say here.
So we don't necessarily need to work with the existing structures. We can take this as an opportunity to create our own structures
I'm gonna
to
be
empower
honest.
our people.
You're probably going to have to work with the existing structures if you can't afford
in order
to avoid
to get
it.
the power. Yeah.
But you are a part of the structure to some degree, even if you find yourself maybe at the lower end of that structure. I think sometimes, not all the time, because I want to be honest and clear, sometimes one of the equalizing forces is the ability to leverage technology to close the gap. We saw with lots of open source projects. I just want to give people that glimmer of hope and inspiration that you can leverage these technologies as well, as long as you don't walk around in read-only mode. You have to learn how these things work, and you have to learn how to build them too.
Yeah. If you can learn if you have the agency to be able to learn how to make them work and work with them, then we can move on to that next piece where we can build the structures in which we and our communities can feel safe in order to continue excelling in them. But you can't do that if you're, what do I need to build today?
Right.
You keep going back to that.
It's going back to the idea of learning, and that the moment you stop learning, you stop challenging yourself, and you stop, coming up with new ideas to solve existing problems.
Oh, that was a very great question. Thank you, Aaron. To kind of move from what we're talking about here, I wanted to, and this one will be brief, but I wanted to talk a little bit about where we think AI can be helpful. Because we are sort of saying, if you want a future in which you can create these spaces where you can grow, you will have to learn how to use AI. And we've talked about how to learn with AI, but not necessarily the places where you can impactfully use AI in your day to day. So I'd love maybe an example or two from each of you about where you've seen it being helpful at taking into account all the sort of agreements we've come to thus far about how you should use it.
So a quick reminder, if you use any of the map apps, most of the algorithms are ML based. So machine learning goes into that. And machine learning is really good when multiple answers will work, and you just want the algorithm to get you to the most probable one for you. So if there's 5 paths to the airport, the model tends to do a good job of suggesting one of the five and tends to be able to do things in real time that a symbolic programming technique, if this, do that, doesn't work. So if there's a traffic jam, then these models can calculate the distance between where you are and the next thing. That is a really great use of these type of applications. So ML has been everywhere for a long time, spam filtering, emails that you may not want to see based on you throwing things into the trash or never opening them at all. These probabilistic tools, right? The foundation of the mathematics behind it has been used in so many places. But then I think when we get to generative AI, remember software development, if I understand it correctly, after 25 years, the goal has been to create software that works only as intended and no other way.
Right.
Any other way is a bug, or security vulnerability, or it doesn't work right. And then we set up whole processes called QA to make sure that it only does what it needs to do. This comes in, this is what comes out every time. With LLMs being a part of this process, and the reason why I think people find it so challenging, is not deterministic. That's a superpower.
Right.
Because if you knew what it was going to do, then there's a much cheaper way to build systems that are deterministic without using expensive GPUs, much more efficient. So when you get a non-deterministic thing and you try to throw it at deterministic problems like resetting passwords, why guess when you can know? And so I think the role of a developer is, where are the places in your experience that you're building for people where this model actually enhances things? Like, hey, we need you to upload a picture of yourself as an avatar. But to be honest, if you don't have a good picture that you like, just stare at the camera and we will generate an avatar for you.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect in that scenario because that's subjective. So an LLM is a good idea for generating dynamic avatars of people. But you got to be careful, because you make me look like someone that I don't identify with, then we can have a problem. And so the fundamentals come back into play. You will still need guardrails. You will still need to give this thing a list of things that it should not do to hurt the experience you're trying to deliver. So that's the way I practically think about leveraging LLMs, and not just the huge ML thing we've been doing for the last 20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
I really speak, for myself. One of the, honestly, the things that I find extremely valuable is that there's the repetitive tasks and what I call like the boring things that you do like on a daily basis. Even when you think about your role as a developer, there's always things that you got to do on a daily basis that don't add any value to you or probably even your team. I think that the use of Gen AI and these AI tools is amazing for that. Another amazing use case that I came across the other day, with a company, they had an amazing application. The people who wrote that application are long gone. They are retired, and they are not touching it because they don't even know what's inside it.
Yeah.
And it helps you accelerate, understand some of the things that are happening along you that in the past, people would have needed like months or weeks and a team, in order to tackle that problem. Now you can accelerate all that work and test different approaches to solving it.
Absolutely. We have this great question in the chat from Oxsense Medja. I've always found programming or coding as a mix between logic and creativity because it helps us learn how to solve problems, but also how to think and create new ways to solve problems. But with AI nowadays, and especially with what big tech companies are saying about AI, some of that can be discouraged. How can we inspire ourselves, but also the people around us, to keep being creative and curious no matter how big AI is getting? I'll give this one to you, Kelsey. I think this person and you are on the same page.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Emilio.
No. It's a really great question because eventually it talks to you
right to the heart.
As a person.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that being a developer, half of who you are a problem solver, right? And then you just coding to solve a problem, and that is kind of the piece that I don't want anyone to miss, right? And tools are here to help you solve problems and basically save time on those things that are not helping you solve problems. It's a really good question. I don't think there's this, I wish I had a good answer. How can we keep pushing people to develop those skills, to be amazing problem solvers, and then use code to solve them. And I think it's in every single one of us, trying to rely and use the tools to enhance and allow us to come up with new ways of solving existing problems and don't lose that creativity. I think if you tend to rely too much on not AI, any tool, eventually, and you lose that that attitude, the problem-solving attitude, and your creativity, that's when you're lost, regardless of the state of the technology.
Yeah, you know what? I've run a business before, and when I think about it, in many ways, there are things you want to be boring, simple, and non-creative so they can be repeatable. And once you figure out the formula, you're almost like, do not write a new authorization layer. Do not, please. Can we just not use the industry standards? So I think that balance we speak about is super important, because I think there's phases. There's a phase of creativity. We've never done this before. How should it work? And you design, and then you step back and say, okay, what materials exist in the world, libraries, frameworks, existing programming languages, to bring this idea to life? And that's where I think engineering comes into effect. Engineering is like dealing with the realities of what's available to bring it to life. Hey, we want a bridge that turns in circles. You say, no, you're not getting that. Yeah. You're getting a bridge that goes straight across.
You could get a bridge over a high body of water.
Exactly. And I think the creativity is sometimes taking these elementary building components and combining them in a creative way to solve a particular solution. So I think that is a form of creativity. But here's the thing. I don't expect every developer to get that on everything that they're working on. Sometimes you're just fixing a bug. Like, let's just be honest, like, you're fixing a bug. You just got to fix the bug. You can't be creative every time. Like, did you invent a new programming language to fix the bug?
The LLMs have done that for me. I will fully admit. Like, sometimes you ask it to fix a bug and it goes, yeah, I changed the whole framework you were working on. And you're like, why?
Sorry, and that's a good example.
That's a trauma I have.
We don't want the creativity there. But I would say this as a developer.
Yeah.
To me, open source has been my playground. So if you're a professional athlete, you have to do what you need to do on the team. But if you want to try a new technique, you want to develop a new move, that's probably more appropriate for the playground, where you have freedom of expression. It's not in production. There's no wins and losses. So I think for a lot of us, just having that an independent outlet, like if you're a musician and you want to try a new genre of music that your fans may not like, you may have to go to a smaller venue, even have a separate stage name, and just try that new genre to explore it without necessarily having the album sales target that your record label may want you to hit. So I think we got to make sure that you may not get all your creativity in every individual setting. So make sure you have more than one setting in order to try and explore. So personal project, home labs, all of those are great places, I think, to keep that creativity alive without burdening your company, your team, in every season to have something for you to be creative with, because sometimes we got to be professionals first. But I agree with Emilio. I'm just kind of giving that other side of the coin, because it's just not always possible to be creative.
No, absolutely right. and I feel I've seen that. We've seen that many times. You know, a new team comes, and then all of a sudden they start rewriting everything that was wrote before.
I know how to do it better just because I'm new.
Yeah, because I'm new. I'm going to write this in an entirely different way. This, to your point, we got to strike the right balance, right?
Yeah,
in a way where, I mean, you don't reinvent the wheel. It has already been invented. But there might be occasions where you can challenge what's available, the status quo, and come up with new ways. Otherwise, we'll never see. Otherwise, we will all be writing in assembly today, right? There was someone come up with a new idea, a new way of doing things, and that's how technology and humans we have kept evolving. And yeah, but striking that balance is going to be critical. Sometimes you can't do that in your working environment. But to your point, is that you are here to fix this bug. Please stop right there. Don't think beyond that. But it's like, don't lose that. If you're not able to find that space for you to be creative, there's plenty of other venues. Right? Yeah. And especially
speaking of other venues.
Yeah.
We would love as GitLab to give you that playground if you do not have that space to be creative right now in your role. So I'm going to tee us into the end of our agenda here, even though this has been a great conversation. But if you are looking for a place to have that exploration with AI and AI agents, we'll be at KubeCon in Atlanta. We're running a 0-day workshop on November 10th. And at that workshop, attendees will get hands-on with Duo Agent platform. You'll build and deploy a swag collector app for KubeCon. So you'll see what swag is available, and you'll build an app that allows users to check off the swag that you want to pick up. We'll help you throughout this workshop. We have our AI agents from everything from issue planning with Duo Planner to troubleshooting that pipeline when you've set it up to deploy. So we're really excited to give you that space to be creative in a situation where we've sort of telling you what to build, but if you do come up with other ideas, we're open to that as well. Emilio, I'm going to throw this one to you. Like, what are you hoping to see people take away from this workshop?
Exactly what you just said. I mean, given the ability to play with it, to play with the technology. One of the things that I'm really excited about what we're building is that it is not just a black box that is supposed to work and no one knows what's going happening underneath. No, this ability to give people the opportunity to look what's inside, to change that, to customize that, to create your own agents, your own capabilities. That is truly the thing that I'm super excited about. Because to Kelsey's point, I mean, AI is not deterministic. Is that you throw a problem and you come up with like 3 different solutions. So now that you have the ability to use that to customize it to your needs, I feel that is something unique and developers are gonna love.
Kelsey, what I would love to ask you here is coming back a little bit to what you were saying about the shell script when we started. I think what's cool about our AI agents and custom agents and flows is that people can think about what is the thing I can automate with this tool, not necessarily for the swag collector, but if they do come to KubeCon to the workshop, we'd be happy to support them building something they're interested in as well. And when thinking about what is the thing I can automate, that is the shell script that allows me to go and do another thing. Like, do you have any advice on that lens?
I think any of these tools, I mean, if I think back to my first shell script, it wasn't the shell script piece. It was the part where I had figured out what I wanted to do and I got the computer to do it repeatedly. Mm-hmm. And now what you all should be excited about is there's a new generation of tools. Yeah. And so I think if you find the right problem that's worth solving, it could be anything, deleting the largest files in your file system older than 90 days, whatever it is. Yeah. If you now have a new toolkit that you can walk up and express that, and then it does it reliably and repeatably, I think you're going to recreate that same feeling of like, oh, I can finally get this tool to do the things that I wanted to do. And I think that has always been the nice thing about the advancement in programming languages, UIs, and tools like the ones you're describing, is that the computer has always been daunting for a lot of people. And the more we lower that ability to get this tool to do what they need them to do, that's the beautiful part. So if you show up to the workshop, that's the thing you're going to do. Come with your tool back open and decide for yourself by getting hands-on whether you should put this new tool in the toolbox.
And we hope that we can do that by giving you a project. So you can experience the tool and then decide for yourself where that tool can apply. Sorry, Emilio.
No, and going back to that idea, and then there's nothing like that feeling when you solve a problem the way you want, right? Mm. Instead of basically, oh, this is a problem, it's been solved for me, and it's like it doesn't quite does what I want, but it is what it is because I don't have the ability to change that. And I think that is something that is truly amazing, and also prove people wrong, right? And no one is perfect. No piece of software is perfect. We are all trying our best, but now you have the ability to, hey, I think I can do better than you. Let me show you how. And in many cases, you don't have to be an expert. That is the other thing that I love about these tools, to Kelsey's point, is that this is something that will help you basically lower those barriers that people faced before. A computer coding that is kind of scary for many, many people. And I feel that this is a unique opportunity for everyone.
Yeah. I think that's a great sort of point. Kelsey, if you have anything to add to that, and then I'll start closing us out.
No, I hope the takeaway for people today is AI is amazing, but so is real intelligence. And there's nothing wrong with choosing to train your own model. You don't have to learn everything. You can use these tools to fill in the gaps. Yeah. Then once you do, ask why that is the right answer, why you're willing to accept it, and open to be challenges. So when you go to conferences like KubeCon or like the workshops given by the GitLab team, that is your chance in person to figure out, do you have the right model, or should you use a little bit of that reinforcement learning to adjust? And I hope you go in that capacity. And I think this all comes together.
I love that. I cannot add to that, but thank you so much for being on the show. Before I let you go, I'm going to pull in our panelists for our 18.5 release Q&A because they have been listening in the back room and they would like to say hi and share some feedback on some of the recommendations that you've just provided.
No,
Sal-
amazing session, Kelsey. Love it. Emilio, y'all did really good out there, and I really love that part about us learning ourselves and just focusing on all the different mediums that we can use and what best suits us. Like, I'm a YouTube person, so I'm always on there, and that's the best way I learn. Sometimes I need to like set a limit for me to get off of it, but I mean, I'm glad that there are all these new ways of learning, so that's really cool for me.
Thanks, Kelsey. That was so great to hear. Such great insights, and I really like the creativity aspect and deep diving. I've been a fan forever. By the way, ever since I saw you like run kubectl over voice in a demo, that was just crazy. So yeah, it's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
And I don't have comments on the session per se, but similar to the team here, I just want to fanboy for a moment. Kelsey, I'm a huge fan of yours. I actually focus on the security portfolio here at GitLab. And I remember watching a session of yours on the secure software supply chain. And you had a revolutionary approach to software security. Do you remember what it was?
That's
Oh no!
question.
Tell me, because I'm pretty sure it was simple, but I want to hear it.
It was the most simple and revolutionary thing I've seen. You had a project called No Code.
Oh, he left.
He left. This is it.
That is the best answer, because every once in a while during a keynote, I break out the most secure framework ever, because code is a liability. Every new thing you bring in, every third-party dependency you import creates this burden on everyone forever. And the best thing you can do sometimes is do nothing at all. So the no-code framework, brilliant.
Your community contributions, or I guess not yours, but the community contributions on that project were also chef's kiss.
Yeah.
On that note, thanks, Sal, for the speechless moment at the end. Kelsey, thank you so much for joining us on the Developer Show. Emilio, you as well. This was an honor and a delight and such a real conversation. I'm like really grateful for how we kept it real and we really talked about the things that I think people are feeling very strongly right now. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Fatima. Thank you, Kelsey.
Okay. Wow, we are going to shuffle right ahead into our 18.5 release Q&A. We'll drop a link to the release blog post in the chat for you to follow along. I wanted to welcome all of you to the stage, but you're already here. So here are my favorite people, Fern, Salman, and Shakar, to talk about the 18.5 release. Fern, I'll let you kick us off.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for a great session with Kelsey and Emilio. Great host work, by the way. And I'm really excited for KubeCon, so I'll actually be there, and I'll be working with my coworker Daniel to go over that actual workshop. We'll cover dual agent platform and a lot of the cool things that you can do with GitLab AI. So I'm pumped for KubeCon, but I'm also really happy about this new release we did, 18.5, and it has all this intelligence that moves us forward, and we're going to be going over that today.
All right. Well, whenever Sal is on the show, I feel like, we never talked about this, but this seems to be a thing. Whenever you're here, we have to talk about security, and we have to talk about security first. There was actually a question in the chat earlier about security, and we were internally debating, like, should we ask this question? And I was like, no, like, Sal's going to be here, and I'm going to save it for Sal. So, Sal, like, what has GitLab been up to? Like, give me a little spiel.
Honestly, I'm just so flabbergasted that I just got to meet Kelsey Hightower and left him speechless. Wow. So thanks for pulling us in a little early, but jokes aside, what has GitLab been up to from a security perspective? I think Fern said it best. Like, we've we've introduced a lot of value recently, and one of the things that has me so excited is we've continued that commitment of bringing security into the same platform developers know and love, while also providing security teams the controls they need to enforce specific guardrails throughout the SDLC. In particular, 18.5, which is the topic of the conversation today, there was a real focus on two key things around prioritization and the developer experience, and we can get into those if it makes sense.
That makes sense.
I don't know how deep you want me to go. That's why I'm like, oh, stop there.
Listen, Sal, you are the expert. I have done my job. That was bringing you on here to share with our audience sort of the back, what's going on the inside, and what is it that we're thinking about. So yeah, let's talk about developer adoption of AppSec tools.
This is one of my favorite questions.
If it was, why didn't you just get into it?
Well, like, you know, I don't know how much info do the people really want, right?
I think the people want as much as you want to give them.
Well, and there's a lot of info too, because there's so many cool things that have come out that were like enabling. So you're gonna talk for hours, but you know, in
That's
light
the
of this, we got to
problem.
keep it. Yeah.
Right? Like, Fern, you and I, we can talk about this for hours. We have talked about this for hours, but okay, you're really pulling it out of me. Developer adoption, one of my favorite topics. And as Fern mentioned, this could be like an hour-long webinar. But the way that we think about this is from two perspectives, right? I'm sure the audience knows application security hinges on developer adoption because that's where AppSec is taking place in a developer's pipelines and their merge requests, etc. And so here at GitLab, we think about it from two perspectives. The first is from the security team's perspective, right? This isn't a new piece of value that we've shipped in the product, but with our security policies, security teams have a lot of granular flexibility over enforcing specific controls in the SDLC. So we're helping them answer, how do we ensure the right scan runs on the right application at the right time, and the results of those scans are dealt with in a certain way. And this is where you can have a merge request approval policy where an additional person has to approve the MR or remediate a certain classification of vulns. That's not net new. But on the 18.5 front, I mentioned developer experience was a key area of focus. And I have the luxury of being on the line with 3 developers. You can gut check this live. But some of the questions that I often hear are, from a developer's perspective, how easy are you making it for me to remediate vulnerabilities? How much are you limiting context switching in and out of different tools? And also, how quickly are you getting results to me in my MR? Right? Those are all aspects of the developer experience that are really critical and also guide a bit of our product innovation here at GitLab. So with 18.5, we've rolled out a series of performance-based enhancements to our static application security testing to get results to developers much faster than they have previously. And I say a slew of improvements because over the past few milestones now, we've released multi-core SaaS scanning, which leverages additional compute power with the GitLab runner. We've rolled out algorithmic optimizations to the engine of our SaaS product to deliver faster results. And most recently, we rolled out diff-based SaaS scanning, which only scans modified code in a merge request. The goal of all these is to get developers much quicker results. The rule of thumb is you want to get developers results in the time it would take them to get coffee, right? So that they're not losing the context.
You don't want me to walk away from my desk, get coffee, come back, realize I still don't have results, and switch to something else.
Now, don't know if they're using a Keurig or like a Breville, right? That could obviously influence coffee time. But right
now that I've just moved, I literally have to go outside.
So what you're saying is I can make more coffee now because like I can finish the cup and then do another flow and then go back.
I can make coffee and a sandwich.
Which I have a bunch of coffee today.
Yeah, get a scone while you're at it, right? But the results are actually incredible.
I'm in London, not Paris. Okay.
Sorry. What is it, like biscuits?
Go ahead.
Get some type of sweet to go with the coffee.
Something you said that was interesting. I was like, how easy are we making it for developers? And I remember thinking about like the amount of noise that as someone who's not a security person will see in like a merge request. And I was wondering if you and Fern could talk about how we've sort of built things around that noise issue.
Yeah, I think we live in more of an algorithmic world where like we don't want to be finding things, and trying to look so deep into everything. We want those results given to us to save us time. We want to, all this data is already available, but it's so hard for a human to parse through it.
Hmm.
So if we have these tools in place that can help us parse through things, for one example, could be, which Sal will talk about, but will be a security analyst agent, for example, that we can ask it questions like if it was another, security engineer on the team, and that can go through and parse things faster than we can go through and look at every vulnerability one by one. It can look at all that data and show us what we need to prioritize now.
Yeah, speaking of looking at
Yeah.
every vulnerability one by one, Sal, I think we have something now to help with that level of noise, like just diving in a little into the details.
Yes, we do. And like, for what it's worth, I love the fact that these are the questions the community is asking now, because what it tells me is like we've moved past the detection issue, right? It means application security is widely accepted as best practice. People are running their scans like SAST and SCA, and we've now moved to this second phase of the problem, which is one of the biggest challenges in security, which is filtering out the signal from the noise. So to build off Fern said, we've shipped the security analyst agent. I'm sure Shaker is going to dive into more details.
Yeah, sorry, I
think
kind of diverted that.
Yeah, you were involved in the build, if I'm not mistaken, right? So we'll leave that for you. But on the signal to noise front, there are two critical things that we've shipped with 18.5. So the first is we've expanded support for static reachability analysis for software composition analysis scans, right? I don't have the data top of mind, but I think this year alone, over 37,000 CVEs were reported, right?
Cool.
Security teams are just drowning in vulnerabilities.
And
Tends
Sal
to get
is
flagged.
drowning in
Doesn't necessarily
Ethernet
mean
issues.
it's
Sorry, Sal, could you start again
Oh.
from security teams are just drowning? I think we lost you for a
I'm
minute.
so sorry. The irony is I'm in like the tech capital of the world.
Security teams are just drowning in
They're
vulnerabilities.
drowning in vulnerabilities. And just because a vulnerable dependency gets flagged doesn't necessarily mean it's actually exploitable. So with static reachability analysis, what we're giving teams insight into is whether or not that vulnerable dependency can be reached and exploited by a threat actor. Now, in isolation, that's fantastic, but over the past year, we've been very intentional about rolling out exploitability intelligence to our customers. And Fern, you know this, we've partnered on a few initiatives, things like exploit prediction scoring system, which tells a customer how likely is this vulnerability to be exploited in the wild. You pair that with known exploited vulnerability data, right? Yes or no. Is this vulnerability being exploited in the wild today? And now you've got static reachability analysis. These are all additional signals, points of intelligence that help security and development teams prioritize the most critical vulnerabilities so they can prioritize the critical threats in their vulnerability backlog. So
Yeah, because we can sort through those, and now we don't no longer need to like go through everything, see if it's exploitable, do these traditional testing. I mean, of course, I would say I would go back to the conversation of Kelsey Hightower. You still need to learn, and you still need to understand what you're seeing, regardless of what the results are from the AI. The AI helps consolidate those results, but you still need to understand what exactly is there, and you can even use these tools to learn more about how these things work, how they're exploited. So it could be also another learning tool, and that's why we need to continuously learn. And we can use these specialized agents to kind of do that. We don't just want to like force things to happen and just take it as it is. We learn from it, and we learn how to work best with it. So we just reduce that noise, that extra noise there.
Speaking of learning, if anyone has questions about our AppSec tooling in the audience, Sal is here, so feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll pop them up for him so we can make him speechless. Sorry, Sal, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say like that. Vern brings up a really, really great point, because one of my favorite things about the way in which we're rolling out AI solutions to our customers is we're being very intentional about the use case and thinking about the user's perspective, right? And I'll be biased again with a security example. What I love about things like do a vulnerability explanation or even the security analyst agent is we're not just giving an answer, we're educating the user, right? We will actually provide an attack scenario in line so that they can right then and there learn in the moment up-level their security skills so that they're not going in completely blind. We're up-leveling them so they can challenge it and be critical about the situation that they're facing.
We keep talking about the security agent and the AI tooling, and that's what we have Shekhar here for. It's great to have you back on the show. I was very excited that you were willing to be back. Last time you were here was last month, and we were talking early stages about like, we'll have an AI catalog. You'll be able to create and use agents. And I feel like I say this on every show, but like I've just used them and they're really cool. And so let's chat about, 18.5, the packed release that we put out. Name some of the agents that are in there, and like, how are you feeling about how people are using these? It's a big loaded question.
That is a big question. So I am so glad to be here again. Thank you for calling me. I am very excited about the 2 agents. It feels like that dream that we realized a few releases ago is finally like coming together. And I'm so excited about the first 2 agents, which you've already mentioned about the security analyst agent, which I love, because I'm one of those lazy developers. When I see a huge security report, I just can't fathom what I need to do next. And that's what I like about it, is the fact that, the agent just helps parse this large text for me, figure out what are the things I need to work on, and it can do things like create issues for me and stuff like that. But most importantly, it tells me what I need to work on next, because that's the most important thing for me as a developer, is what does this mean? That's the most important thing, because when I look at the security scan report, it's really important to understand which of these vulnerabilities are really reachable, which of these vulnerabilities are really the ones which don't matter for me at the moment. So those are the things that I really care about. Which is the easiest to fix? I'm a lazy developer, so whichever is the easiest to fix is the one I'm going to go after next.
Hold on, Shekhar. You're telling me you didn't come to GitLab to work on security vulnerabilities?
We forgot to tell Shekhar that when Sal is here, the only thing you care about is security.
Is security.
Doing it absolutely right. Fern is the only person that Sal knows that does this right.
But speaking about security, and this is like a big security question that we have, how does the self-hosted dual agent platform address data sovereignty and enterprise needs? So we do have the dual agent platform. I know it can be self-hosted. I know all these agents can run within that agent platform that we have. So talking about security, because we want to just get into it, what's with data sovereignty and how do we address those needs?
Yeah, so we've got lots of customers in highly regulated environments. They may have like all these countrywide rules about where can data be and data can go and stuff like that. And so it's really important for us to be able to cater to those customers. And so that's why we have our own self-hosted AI gateway. So you can host AI gateway yourself. We normally host it on the cloud for customers who are willing to use managed services, but the number of customers who are air-gapped, who are restricted by governments or rules around cross-border. And so it's really important for those customers to be able to run AI. So they want all the advantages of AI, but they can't send the data outside. And so that's why the self-hosted AI gateway is so essential, is to be able to connect to internal models that you run. You could even fine-tune those models. We have a list of recommended models that we allow customers to use. And that's really the self-hosted journey here. So if it's especially for those customers who are so sensitive when it comes to their data, and this could be because of regulations, because they're federal customers, it could be because their IP is so important to them. And so that's where we see a lot of this use. And I'm excited to that it's in beta now. And so this is the next step of the journey, and we're seeing lots of customer interest. Yeah.
Awesome. No, that's a great answer. So you can bring your own models. We can run those self-hosted. We can use the ones that are already available. So now we understand a little bit of like the options that we have with the different models that we can use. But let's talk more about the actual agents, right? So we have all these agents that can be deployed in different ways that we want, that can be even self-hosted with different models. So let's talk about the 2 new agents that were released with this 18.5. Yeah. So we got the security analyst agent, and then we have the planner agent. So
let's start with security analyst. Fern, you use that a little bit, right? And then Shekhar, you can add to how that was built. And
so I used it. I thought it was great. I mean, what I did is I populated this project where I had a bunch of different vulnerabilities of different types. I went through and I confirmed some. I actually exploited some. I checked I enabled reachability, and I went through and I asked it which one should I address first. The things that it came up with were very accurate, in my opinion, because there was keys that were there. So there was like I had a GitLab personal access token that was an active one, even though it was in my private project. That's a worst practice. You should never hard code keys. So those were the first ones that told me,
Sal
hey,
on the
like,
street will tell you that.
hey, these are critical. Like, you need to address these first. Then, oh, we have one that's been confirmed already by your team. Let's address that next. And then it'll go through things by severity, by exploitability, and it'll use all that metrics. And it gave me a clear path to actually, figuring out what I need to work on. And then what I went ahead is I assigned somebody using that same particular flow. I told the agent, all right, well, now that you've given me this data, can you create an issue and assign a developer to that issue to work on this particular, vulnerability, like the top
I love
one that I found.
what you're talking about here, because I think it goes back to what Sal was saying, is that even just identifying what should I work on first and who should work on it are what you're hearing from customers is very difficult.
You know, the other thing that I really like about this is the experience, because it's simple, but like traditionally you'd have to sift through reports and checklists and apply manual filters. It's one of those things where once you experience it, it's difficult to go back, right? Like the ability to interface with natural language and just chat for your vulnerability management workflows just makes so much more sense than the old model where you're going to different lists and different dashboards.
When you talk about dashboard, I start thinking about Duo Planner agent. So Shakar, this one's for you. I think that's another agent that helps you not shift through dashboards and milestones and things. And I used it to like organize a demo project with milestones and figure out what's at risk. And if you're working on an enterprise, like you've got so many things grabbing your attention. Like, tell me about the planner agent, sort of how it works, and maybe some ways that you've seen it been customized or expanded from where it is now.
Yeah, so these first both of these foundational agents, what I love is that the fact that the teams have crafted the prompts and tools in a way that it makes it super useful, right? Typically in an enterprise, you don't know where to start with your prompts, and this is a team of experts on both the plan side and the secure side who have actually gone and crafted these prompts and created these tools so that these agents are actually really useful. And so shout out to those teams who've actually delivered this. And so the planner agent is one of my favorites because I've been using that constantly. I went on vacation recently, and as soon as I got back, I'm like, all right, tell me what are the last 2 weeks of discussion on this issue that I missed, and it summarized it for me perfectly, and that's super useful. Another use case that I really like is the fact that you could take a issue that is pretty large, and you could break it down into smaller issues, and you could instruct the agent exactly how to do that. Or you can ask it to tell me the status on an epic, for example. Like, we've got these epics which are many hierarchy deep, and exploring them and to understand where, how to really start tackling issues or where this epic is super useful. Because for, let's say, technical program managers to actually understand what the state of something is quite hard, and the planner agent can really help, go into an initiative and really explain what's going on in the current state of it, because typically they're quite fast moving. And so those are use cases I've seen, but there are so many more. Like the planner agent with the ability to create issues and really go into details of issues and epics is really useful. And I like the fact that we've crafted the prompt for its thought process in a way that so that it makes sense to the consumer, right? And so that's what I really enjoy about it.
When is the vacation agent coming out?
The one that tells you to take a vacation.
I feel like that's a blog post waiting to be published, though, right? Like using Duo Agent Planner to catch up from vacation.
Here's how I didn't have Sundays scary after my 2 months, right? Of 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Nobody takes 2 months. Don't quote me. Shakar, having you here is really great because I get to ask you like all of the things. Custom agents. Like I tried to play around a little bit, but I think I was struggling with what Kelsey and Amelia were talking about earlier about like what is it that I want to build, and you're a lot closer to the product itself and sort of why it was built. And so like, what are some use cases for custom agents that we can maybe encourage people to try out?
Yeah, so there are two types of custom agents. The types we release now are essentially third-party agents, the CLI agents as we call them. And CLI agents basically are, you can bring an external CLI like Claude Code or Codex or Gemini CLI or Amazon Q. And so the idea really is that you can run these third-party agents on our platform. It runs behind the scenes in our CI framework, right? And so you could typically you could mention the agent to say, hey, can you implement this for me? Or what would the implementation plan for this issue look like? Or you could assign that agent to an issue and say, hey, could you take a look at this and
Could you
start
do my
like
work for
responding
me?
to some of the things? Or you could ask it to review like an MR as well. So there are various ways in which you can use these CLI agents. In the next few releases, we are going to bring first-party GitLab Duo agents as well, which are triggerable. I'm very excited about that and the way you can construct the flows and combine multiple agents together in a way that would then trigger off a bunch of actions. So I'm super excited about that. It should be coming soon, hopefully. And so that's our goal. Our goal is to be able to have this expansive AI catalog where you have a bunch of agents. And we don't think that these agents. So we will build a bunch of these foundational agents, but this is not the end of it. We expect customers to fork these agents, add their own prompts because their enterprise context is so crucial, and then completely customize these agents to their own needs. And that's what I'm so excited about, the whole journey of AI catalog being used in triggers and then being executed in our CI platform.
I will use that to thank you for being here. Hopefully, we can have you on again, and we'll hear how some of our customers and users have been creating these and using these flows and sort of expanding on them. I'm looking forward to our 18.6 Q&A. I hope put it in your calendar and don't take vacation.
Or maybe the agent will come in for us.
The Shekar agent will show up, the PR agent. It's so great to have both of you here, Shekar, Saman, and thank you, Fern, for co-hosting and giving our audience an opportunity to drop in on this sort of insiders behind the scenes chat. If anyone still has questions, feel free to drop them where you're watching and we can get back to them after the show. This is a wrap on episode 5 of the Developer Show. I thought today was pretty incredible. It's coming to 6:30 here and I'm like, wow, it's been a few days of a show, but it's only really been an hour and a half. So we had Kelsey and we had Emilio. And I would say the takeaway from that was like training your own model. And then once you've trained your own model, maybe you can start using some of our AI agents.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
A special thank you to our production team and the behind the scenes, Jill and Olivia, who worked to make all of this possible. Thank you to Sal, Fern, and Shekar for always sharing your insights and expertise with us. And thank you to our audience for all of your great engagement and questions today. We'll see you next month on The Developer Show. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah.
See you.